Happy Thursday, everybody. Hopefully, this Thursday will be a heck of a lot better than last Thursday. I did not print it out, but I just want to remind you that I'm holding an event in October. The flyer is up in my group, and you can see it at the top of the page. It's going to be really fun and exciting, and I actually have one of the kits to go ready, and this is it. I mean, you can't really see it, but this is going to be one of the kits to go that I'm going to be offering. And then I will do another one for Christmas because I'm going to be using one of the new Christmas stamps for the cards and classes. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Margaret. And I'm using the leaves of holly for that, for all the cards, for half the cards I'm creating for my event. But tonight we're going to be using the Awash and Beauty stamp set, matching dies. Here's the stamp set here. Really very, very pretty. And the designer series paper, which I just love the colors of. For this card here, I have all these little pieces falling out here. I have to put them back in the envelope. I actually cut them out from the designer series paper to save time on stamping and just to do something a little bit different. So the first card is actually, it has one little holder right here. Something just a little bit different. Hey, Do. Hello, Facebook user. That must be Karen. And then I have this cute little box that holds a container of milk and honey goat milk cream, hand cream. And then the card that I fussy cut with the designer series paper. And I don't know if you can see, but do you see the background? This set actually comes with a nice background die, the lattice background die. And what I actually did, let me see, I hope I have it right here. Yep. I actually die cut the lattice in the thick basic white. And if you can see, I actually used the Mary Mallow and blended some color on the background to give it a subtle lattice look in the back. Thanks, Dawn. And then I splattered it with the white pigment ink, or the Whisper white pigment ink. So just something a little fun. And then we just have the flower stamped on the inside. So if you weren't with me last week, after I got done with my video, my husband and I went outside to fill bird baths, and he actually filled the bird bath, and I filled up some bird feeders, and he went to go roll up the hose and actually had a heart attack. So we ended up spending that evening in the ER. They did a catheterization the next day and found that one of his stents was completely occluded. So they transferred him to York Hospital, which is a trauma hospital, one that works specifically with heart problems, and transferred him there. So we had an angioplasty. They placed a balloon, yesterday, and he actually came home. Nope, they placed it the day before he came home yesterday. So hopefully he'll stay well now until his bladder procedure, which is in the end of July. So thank you to everyone who wrote on my timeline and for with your prayers. I do appreciate it. So let's work on this card first. And I'm going to warn you ahead of time. This here for you always, I had such a hard time with it because, and I have to clean it, the writing on the stamp and the sticker do not match up. If I tell you I stamped this sentiment, it's actually stamped up here under the flower so many times that you can see I finally drew a line on my block and lined up the stamp. So when I do stamp it, that is my straight line. Oh my goodness, I was so frustrated today. I will have the PDF posted tomorrow, so no worries about the dimensions. So I'm going to start with, this is Mary Mallow, and it is the basic card base of 5.5 by 4.25. Then I'm going to layer it up. I have Mary Mallow 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and the designer series paper 5 1/4 by 4. And we are going to put these two together first. Let's just get these together because we need to put this little binding piece onto the base of the card. So we're just going to put that there for a moment and line this up just like that. Now, I did not do the giveaway for today. I never got a chance. I was catching up on all the things I could not do over the weekend. So I will do that next Thursday. But if you do place, yeah, it is crazy. Hello, hello. So if you place a $35 order using that host code, I'll send you these make and takes. Okay, so here is the piece that we're going to attach to the base of the card. But we also need our little binding piece, which you can see right here. And this piece, I didn't really measure it out, 2.5 by about 7/8. And what we're going to do is we are going to adhere this so the edge of the fold of this piece is on the edge of our card base. And I'm actually going to get my glue for this. And did you see that, ladies? I actually put the lid on my glue today. So it would be it wouldn't be clogged up. All right, so I'm going to lay that on there so it looks like it's pretty straight. And then we're going to take our card base, and now we can put this down right like this on the base. So it'll cover up that piece. And let's just going to lift it up so I can. Okay. Now for the inside, I did cut the scallop contour frame, and this is the 3 1/8 by 4.5, and that is going to go right here. But what I want to do before I actually take care of this, I want to make sure it's on here straight. And I think it looks pretty straight. We want to do the front of the card. Now this paper is not really directional. I'm using these flowers as my directional part of the paper. So this is the top of the flower. So I'm just gonna glue this. No, I don't want to do that yet. I want to first glue this down. So I'm just going to lay this on the front of the card because I want to cover up that scalloped frame. Oops. And we just want to line it up, and then we're going to add some glue because we want this to adhere right here. And then I can take my piece and lay it on the front of the card. Just like that. We'll just give that a second to dry. I do have another of this scallop contour frames, and this is the smaller one. It's 2.5 by 3 3/4. Now this is the one we're going to stamp the sentiment on, but first, hello, hi Pam, how are you? Hi Cheryl. And then I do have another Facebook user there. I'm not sure who you are. Okay, so there is the front of our card. Now I'm going to pull out one of the flowers and my Merry Mallow. And we're just going to ink up this stamp and give it a nice stamp. And then we're going to grab our leaf and some old olive, and we're actually going to stamp this twice. 1, 2. I love these stamps that add the texture to them. And then we're going to grab the small little flower and Flirty Flamingo. And we're also going to stamp this one 2 times. Just like that. Now the dies for this set, we're going to take our leaf and run that through the two different times. And then we're going to, oops, piece of hair. Run that through. This one you do have to finagle a little because it looks like it's going to fit, and then it has a little piece that doesn't. And then we have the last little flower, and it also has a cute little die to cut it out, just like that. So you're going to run it through your cut and emboss machine. We'll have our flowers, we'll have our leaves, and then on the second set of leaves, I actually did cut it in half so I can have 3 leaves around my flowers. And then I have my 2 Flirty Flamingo flowers. So really quick and easy. So before we actually put these on, we're going to pull this little frame back, and I'm going to pull out my Merry Mallow. And if you joined us a little late, thanks, Pam. Iggy hair? No, my hair. My hair's been falling out. I had a hard time with this stamp because for some reason the words on the sticker do not match the words on the other side. So I actually did add a straight line so I can use that as my guide. So here we go. I'm going to guide it up from the stitching and we'll put it about there. And it's probably not really 100% straight. I'm telling you, I did it probably about 4 times. Not too bad. It's off a little bit. And then I'm going to take the flower and we're going to actually add some dimensionals and we're going to pop this up onto the corner. Now the flower, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong. I seem to like it facing in this direction. So I'm just going to attach this right here on the corner. Then I'm going to take my leaves and I am going to adhere them with some glue. And I'm just going to tuck it up and under, just like that. The little flirty flamingo flowers, I'm also going to just tuck them under. One on each side. And then the last leaf, I'm going to hold that off for a second because I actually cut out, there's 2 dies in here, right here, that I die cut in Flirty Flamingo and the Distressed Gold. Now this is too long, so I am going to cut it off at the base. When you do want to tuck these under, you have to remember about those dimensionals because they get in the way. So we're going to just stick that under just like that. Then we're going to take the gold piece and I'm going to trim off the end because it's going to get it so it doesn't get caught up on those dimensionals. And we'll stick it right about there. Now I can take my third leaf, add a little bit of glue, and I'm actually going to stick it right up here at the top. And then I'm going to adhere this to the front of the card. So let's pull our card back in. And we want to get this on the front of the card and get it as straight as we can. Make sure it's centered. That looks good. And then in the suite for this set, iridescent pearls are included. So I'm going to actually use these tonight on my card. I'm going to take one of the larger ones and stick it in the bottom left-hand corner. And then I'm going to take a couple of the smaller ones and I am just going to add one. And then we'll put one here. And then I'm going to take another large one and I'm going to stick it on the corner of this front flap here. So there is the card so far. Now I know this is Mary Mallow, but the metallic Sweet Sorbet ribbon looks really nice with it. So I'm going to let me grab my ribbon scissors. I'm going to take a length of ribbon and then fold it in half and then create our bow because I want a double bow on my ribbon. So let me just grab this tail here and then pull it. Make sure I don't pull it too tight, just like that. Get it off my fingers and check the loops. Just want to straighten this out a little bit. And then for the tail, I am going to cut this loop and then trim it at an angle. Let's grab some glue dots. And we're going to stick it right here at the end of that flower. Okay, so there is the front of our card. Now we're going to switch back into the inside. Let me just grab a piece of scrap. And for the inside, I decided to use a full stem and one of the other flowers that are included in the set. Just move some of this over. I'll show you on this one. Okay, just have it over the end of the card. So we're going to grab our old olive again. And we're actually going to ink this up and stamp off. And let's do it about here. We'll do it up a little different. So then we have it coming off the edge. And then we're going to grab our Mary Mallow. And our other flower stamp. Now I like this piece right here to be where the stem should go. So we are going to actually stamp off. And then I am going to stamp it right about there. Then we can pull in our card. Now to make sure that it stays behind this flap, I'm actually going to grab my glue, add my glue to the back of this piece, and I'm going to close it the opposite way, just like that. This way, you can't see the frame from the front. It looks like it went on pretty straight. If not, you can straighten it out. That looks good. And then I'm just going to get my pokey tool. And I'm going to grab a pearl. And I'm going to put one right in the corner. And there is card number 1. Something a little bit different than we're used to. And I hope you like it. Thanks, Stu. Thank you, thank you. Ah, yeah, Lottie, doesn't it? It's amazing. I wasn't too sure about using that with Mary Mallow, but it works perfect. Okay, so let's grab that second card. Now, I did already, let me just grab the ingredients to this card. I did already fussy cut the flowers, so you would not have to watch me fussy cut. And we're going to, again, we're working with a normal card base of 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4. Then I have a basic white layer, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And then another Merry Mallow, 5 1/4 by 4. Now we're going to take our scrap piece and we're going to take the 5 1/4 by 4 piece. And if you remember, I die cut the lattice piece in heavy white, basic white cardstock. And I'm just going to lay this right on the front of the card. I'm not going to tape it or anything. I'm just going to hold it down with my fingers, and I'm going to grab the Merry Mallow. So let's just hold this down, and you're going to ink up, and we're going to just get some color on this background. I'm not worrying too much about this upper right hand corner because the flowers are going to be covering it. So we're just going to blend some color, Merry Mallow on Merry Mallow. And you can add as much color as you like. I wanted something a little subtle instead of embossing. And we're going to take that off. And then you can see that the lattice is right there on the front of the card. Next, I'm just going to take a clear block and my Whisper White pigment ink. We're just going to add some pigment ink to the block. And I'm going to get my water painter. I'm going to add some water to the top of the block. And we're going to mix this together. And we're just going to splatter. And I would suggest putting something under. Just splatter the front of the card. Okay. Clean up the brush. And we're going to let that dry for a few minutes so it does not smear. We want those dots to stay. And clean off our block. So we're just going to put that to the side for a second. Now for the rest of the front of the card, I used the layering circle. And this is 3 inches. And then I have the 2 7/8. This is the new Distressed Gold and Merry Mallow. So we're just going to, that's the wrong one, adhere these two together. Layer these right together. And we're just doing this step so we can get the other layer dry without ruining it. Then we have our basic white. And this is about 2 3/4. So we're going to grab our stem piece again and our old olive. Let's get this brush put away. And we're going to ink up. And again, we're going to stamp off because I don't want this to be so dark. And we're going to stamp this on our white circle. Okay. Then we're going to open up our Merry Mallow. And we're going to grab our sentiment. You are a true friend. And we're going to stamp this right on that circle. Now we can add our flowers. So I am going to grab my dimensionals, and instead of putting it on the designer series paper, I'm actually going to lay them down on the circle so I'm sure to hit the circle with all my dimensionals. And we're going to lay it just like that. Okay? And then we're going to take this layer and let's add some glue. Pull our circles back in and line this circle up on the Merry Mallow. Just like that. So now we have our circle. We can again grab our, I'm just looking, it's sitting here right in front of me. Grab our ribbon again. So we're going to grab a length. And I'm going to use my ribbon scissors. So we're going to cut a length and then fold it in half. I want to make sure that my loops and my ribbons stay nice and neat, which is a little harder when you're working with a double layer. So we're just going to pull that through. And then because this ribbon is so tiny, I just like to grab it with something and then pull it quite tight. Not so tight that I can't get my fingers out. But we have to be a little careful with this ribbon because it is very thin. And if you notice, you can actually, I'll show you when I cut this. This ribbon is pretty neat. I've used it a few different ways. If you look at it, you can actually take this ribbon and pull it to make it a little wider, or you can actually shred it, and I did that for one of my other cards. I guess, I don't know, last week maybe. And you can actually pull these pieces apart and shred it so you have these little pieces. Pretty neat. All right, let's grab a glue dot and we're going to put this right at the end of our frame. Just like that. Our glue dots there. Now we can grab our base. Put this aside for a second. Now let's get our card base together. 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. This is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and this is going right on the front of the card. Now this layer is dry, so I'm just going to cut another length of ribbon. I'm going to grab those glue dots again. You know me, when it comes to bows and these lengths of ribbon, I don't like doing it. So I cheat. So we're going to just use that glue dot and pull it around. And then let's grab another glue dot. Measure it out. Should be about there. And then pull this all the way down and it should touch. Okay, so you can see the lattice stencil that we did. Hey Chris, how are you? What did I splatter? I splattered the front. Can you see? I stenciled some lattice on the front with Mary Mallow, and then I splattered the front with the pigment Whisper White and some water. Hello, hello, how are you? Sharon, I think, right? And then we're going to lay this right here on the front of the card. Just like that. Now we can grab our circle, grab some dimensionals, and we're going to pop this up on the front of the card. I'm going to stand up so I can make sure my sentiment is straight. So I'm going to pull it down, just like this, and put that right there. Let's grab some iridescent pearls, and I'm going to put a large one right here. And then I'm going to grab 2 small ones and add it to this top right corner. And then I'm going to grab another die cut. Now I'm just going to test this, and that should be good. And this is what we put on the first card also. And I'm just going to get this and tuck it right under that circle. And there's the front of our card. Now, if you want to make it a little more shimmery, you could do some Wink of Stella on the flowers. I decided to leave the designer series paper just the way it is. For the inside, I have Mary Mallow 5 1/4 by 4 and basic white, which is 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. And we're just going to bring this back in. Let's see, what flower did I use? I used the flower that we used on the first card. And I'm going to actually stamp this one in Flirty Flamingo. But we're going to stamp off. So let's ink up and stamp. I'm going to turn it. Can you see? Those papers from the dimensionals show up everywhere. And then we're going to grab our leaves again and our old olive. Now we know this is rounded, so we're going to have to watch where we stamp, but I'm going to actually stamp off. So let's stamp it, and we'll put 1 leaf here. And then we're going to stamp off, and we'll add another one right here. And we'll leave that corner. Let's grab our Mary Mallow and some seal. And before I wipe this, I want to make sure I don't have any ink on my fingers. Okay. And we can add our glue. and add it to the inside of the card. So there is card number 2. Just quick and easy, but yet still very pretty. My husband actually is feeling pretty good. He's sore. He's very bruised because where they had him on a heparin drip. He's usually on blood thinners, but for the procedure, they had to take him off his blood thinner and they put him on a heparin drip. And he has a very low platelet count. It should be about 140 to 150,000 platelets. Thanks, Margaret. And his platelet count is 60,000. So he has no clotting factor to begin with. And then being on the blood thinners makes it even worse. So the poor guy is just bruised all over. It's terrible. But he is feeling much better. So that's all that counts right now. All right. So now we have our little box. And like I said, it's just a little container of moisturizer for dry hands. It's goat milk. And I use the Mary Mallow and the Designer Series paper. So we're going to start with basic white, and you can see I wrote on the inside so I could tell you. We're going to cut our paper, and I think it is 4 by 10 and no, by 9 1/4. And you're going to score it at 1 1/4, and then I actually flipped it and did it 1 1/4, but you're going to do it at 1 1/4 and 2 3/4. And then on the long side, you're going to score it at 4 and then 5 1/4. So let's just grab our bone folder. And I really do need to invest in a new one. Or get this one and clean it because it is a mess. Okay, so we're just going to fold and burnish. And then we're going to grab our scissors, and you can see I got Old Olive on it. And I like to cut out the bump. So I'm cutting on the right-hand side of the score line, and then I'm cutting on the left-hand side of the score line. And then I like to miter the corners so then we have a nice tab that won't interfere when we fold it closed. We're going to turn it on the other side, and again, it's my left of the score line and then my right of the score line. And then I'm just going to miter the edges to create our tab. Let's just trim this off a little bit here. There we go. Okay. Now before and I'm going to use this for the back, before we even put the box together, it's easiest now to put on our layers. So we have Mary Mallow, and this is 1 3/8 by 3 7/8, and we're going to cut 2 of those. And then we have a 3 7/8 by 1 1/8, and we're going to cut 2 of those. And then we have our Designer Series paper, and it's 1 1/4 by 3 3/4, and you have 2 of those, and then 3 3/4 by 1, and we have 2 of those. So let's just get these layered up. I'm actually just going to use some glue, and I'm going to make sure that it is on here centered, looking at the bottom of the piece. I'm going to turn this one. because the top of this piece is going to be underneath our lid. Make sure that's on straight. Move them up. And then here's our front and our back. And again, just looking at the pieces, I'll use that flower as my guide for the direction of the designer series paper. And then this one, I'll use the leaves as my directional. And then we're just going to lay these down just like this. Now, where I said I was going to use this piece here as my backing, the front is where I would put my first layer and my two sides. So let's add the front here. And then we're going to grab our sides. Just looking. Maybe we'll put it this way. And then when I lay these on these sections, I can actually make, ooh, it went blurry. I can actually make sure that these are laying in a straight line. And then we'll put this one on this side. Just like that. Now this is the back piece. So we're going to lay this one in the center here. Now we can close up our box. I'm going to use the Seal Plus. Let's just tuck these under. I'm going to get, let's see where my mat is. And I'm going to put it as close to the score line as I can. And then, oops, I always do that. And then we'll go on this side. And this is just so I can put my, attach my tabs so it doesn't make you, the things that you put in your box hang up. Okay. And I did it again. Okay. I'll use the seal next time. Okay, so here's the front of our box. I am just going to tuck my tabs and attach them to the back of the box. Just like that. And then we have our front and sides, and I'm actually going to use some glue on here. And then we can just close this up using our table to make sure it's flat. And then there is our box. You can take your bone folder, make sure it's adhered really well. Seal Plus is, hi Elizabeth, how are you, honey? The Seal Plus is a little stronger, so it's really good for boxes. That's about the only reason. I just find it difficult to use. Now, looking at this box, you want to make sure you can see here are the seams to the corners. So this is the back of my box. So I'm just going to turn it over just like that. Now for the top, I have a Mary Mallow, and it is 3 5/8. 3 5/8. That should have been. Let me just check this because it should not be 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 1 5/8. Okay, so it should be, I'm going to have to trim this, 3 5/8 by 3.5. So I miscut this one. So let me just trim this up a hair. So it's 3 5/8 by 3.5. And then I didn't even score this piece. So let's pull out our scoreboard. And we're going to score it at 1/2 and 1 all the way around the box. So each side, 1/2 and 1. Now for the top of the box, I did a double-sided top just to make it a little bit sturdier. And that is the reason why for the box itself, I added layered sides with the Designer Series paper and the cardstock to make it a little bit stronger. So now we have our box, and it is scored. So let's fold, and I'll show you how. To fix your box. So what we're going to do is we need a tab on each corner. So what we're going to actually do is cut out these 3 outside squares. Let's just, don't want to pull it. Okay. This side I'm going to miter, and I'm going to miter this. This is our tab. So I'm going to go and cut and miter each side. Now I want the box top not to have the tabs all on the same sides. I want it to be distributed around the top. Oh no, Elizabeth, I hope you start feeling better. Aw, I'm so sorry that you haven't been able to craft. So now we have our tab right here. We're going to turn it, and now we're going to create our tab on this side. So we can distribute these tabs, 1 on each side. And we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to cut out these 3 boxes, miter that. Here's the 3rd box. And we're going to miter these sides. And then we're going to miter this end here. We want to put the tab, so we're going to turn it again. Let's cut out these, miter this. Okay. Miter this. And then we can come right up here and cut that off. And then miter the tab. And then we're going to turn it again. So let's cut this up. We're going to cut this, miter this side, cut that off, and then miter these tabs. Okay. Now you can see that each of the tabs is on a different side. It just makes it so they're distributed around each side of the box. And then we're going to put some seal on these tabs. And you could use tear and tape. And now we have to create our box top. So we're going to adhere it all the way around. And then here are the flaps. This time I'm going to add some glue. You could use tear and tape if you wanted. So I'm just going to add some glue to each of the flaps. And then we're going to fold them in. Take your bone folder and just give it a good rub. This way that edge is nice and folded. And go all the way around on each side. And you might have to just rub it down a few times while the glue is drying. And then it fits right onto the top of the box. Okay, we're going to grab some Mary Mallow and the classic label punch. This is like my favorite punch. And we're just going to punch that out really quick. And then we're going to grab our basic white and our Just Because with some Mary Mallow and ink up. And let's do it up here. Just stamp that right like that. Doesn't need to be straight because we're going to also punch it out with this punch. And it is just a tad tight. But it works. And I'm just going to take the Mary Mallow and add some glue. Oops. I want it to be on the outside here. Thanks. Thanks, Dawn. And let's grab our box. And I think I made the dimensions for my box top off. So if you wrote down your direction, if you wrote down the measurements, don't go by those measurements because I cut something wrong. Okay, this one fits. This one's a little bit too big. So then what I did, and I'm not going to do that instead of, so for the box top, it is 1, 2, 3 5/8 by 3 3/8. That's what I thought it was. And then you score it at a 1/2 inch and 1 inch, and that'll get you the right directions. Then what I did for the box top, and I'll show you on this one real quick, if I could find what I did with my ribbon again. Isn't that crazy? It's probably right here in front of my face. Yes, it is, right here. So all I did was I added a glue dot and ran it all the way around the box and then tied my bow so it would end up being right at the end of the sentiment. Then for the top pieces, I have basic white that's 1.5 by 1.25, and then it's 1 3/8 for the designer series paper by 1 1/8. And then that'll give you the top of your box. I knew when I cut this it was not right. See, it's just a little bit too big. I'll have to correct that. So, I hope you enjoyed tonight's cards and box. Just something a little different instead of our basic card base all the time. Thank you ever so much for joining me and putting up with my antics. And I'll be back. I'll definitely be back on Saturday. I'll continue on with my Simple Saturday and then Stepped Up Sunday. Thanks, Margaret. Thanks, Stu. Have a great night. And I'll talk to everybody on Saturday. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.